When kids just won't listen, parents often feel stuck between two choices: to give in or get angry. It's exhausting. We give you the top techniques directly from the experts, helping you on your path to a more peaceful, respectful, and joyful life with your kids. Myla Leinweber. She's from British Columbia, and she's a former kindergarten teacher with a master's in education. Currently, she is helping parents of young children navigate parenting challenges and find more joy in parenting and ultimately their lives. Her goal is to eliminate mom or / parent guilt and to empower parents to be confident in the tough situations that they encounter. Her practice is based on positive psychology, and the model that she uses is finding the strengths in the family and working and building from those rather than offering more of a prescription of a how-to for weaknesses. In this show, she talked about her experience as a parent coach, why she loves it, and how she sees kids as whole people with preferences and feelings and experiences. She also discusses that parenting strategies are different for each family, and it's important to consider creating a kid-generated plan. What is a kid-generated plan? I'll let Myla tell you. Myla Leinweber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Myla, what is it that you love most about working with kids?
I love that young kids are whole as they are. They just come to us, and I feel like your other guests have talked about this too, but there's a wholeness to them. And it's us as adults who are often othering them, and we think of them as like a tantrum or a sleep problem. But when we see them as whole, and then we remember, oh, right, they're people. They're like us. They're human beings. They're having experiences, preferences, and moment-to-moment things are happening for them. Then I feel like we can remember our wholeness a little bit better too. So I love that kids kind of bring that out for us.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has used that phrase so far. Whole. I like it.
Thanks. I like it
too. What is it that you would say you've learned most about working with them?
Oh, what haven't I learned working with children? I really feel like kids are sort of this path to, enlightenment is the word that I like to use, but to sort of complete understanding. Kids remind us of our own childhood, of our own wholeness. They strip us down. They are honest with us. They're so fun. It's so joyful and playful to be around kids. So I think that children actually have so much to teach us about ourselves and about how to be in the world if we're sort of tuned into that and we're listening to them.
Tell us about your current job or experience that where you're dealing with kids presently, what that looks like.
Yeah, so I have kind of an interesting story. Before I had my own children, I was a kindergarten teacher. And so I was working with kids in that context every day. And then we were having challenges. So I knew developmentally what was going on with them. I knew how to educate them. I understood what was going on in their brain and how to get them to read and all those things. But I was noticing that there was a bit of a lack of social emotional intelligence and awareness and self-regulation skills. All teachers out there will be like,
Right.
And so I'd go to the parents and I'd say, can we have an interview? Can we sit down? I'm noticing this behavior in class. What are you doing at home? And the parents were like, I don't know. I don't know how to deal with this. Do you have any ideas? So here I was, this teacher, and I started reading parenting books and just gathering information to create plans with the parents to help the parents. So then when I had my own children, I didn't really like the idea of going back to work and being away from them. So I did the PCI parent coaching program, which is like a year-long master's level parent coaching program. And I was like, I'm going to help parents because this is how you...
All right, the call was dropped. I don't know whose end it was. It could be mine. I'm in a... You want to help parents because this is how you...
Okay. I wanted to help parents because I realized this is actually the way that you can make an impact with kids. So, or the way that I could, because you help a parent and those rippling impacts are going to be enduring and last forever. Whereas when I had them in my classroom as a teacher, for sure, I could help them sort of for the year, but often I would see them the next year and they would be struggling with the next teacher or their self-regulation, strategies that we came up with weren't working anymore. So I started to work with parents and just feel like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is how I help kids. Now I actually we call it, I'm in British Columbia in Canada, and we call it TOC, a teacher on call. So I still teach occasionally in the school because I just missed it, because I love being around kids. Like I said, all those reasons at the beginning. It's so much fun. It's so rewarding. So I have this unique opportunity. I have my own kids who are 2 and 4, so really young kids. I'm still in the school system, but now I get to kind of tie it all together with the parents. And that impact just feels greater to me. So that's how I work with kids in this sort of indirect way.
Mm-hmm. That is a story that we hear a lot, and probably my own story, which is starting off working with kids and then thinking about, okay, the whole family needs help. Where can I really do work for the whole family here? What drew you to choose kindergarten in the first place? I mean, you've talked about obviously the enjoyment that you have around kids. Was that in a public school?
Yeah, so a couple things. I sort of got, I guess, grandfathered into it because my own dad was a kindergarten teacher. And so I helped out in it's kind of rare to see a male kindergarten teacher, but I helped out in his classroom. And then the more that I'm kind of really into brain development, and the more that I read about things, those 0 to 7 years are so crucial. There's so many foundations that are being laid, and I just felt like, okay, I like being in the public education system. I really enjoy public education. I think it's really important. And so I, wasn't interested in doing daycare or younger, but I kind of wanted to be at the gates of those kids and help set them on a path of this is what education can look like. This is what learning can feel like. So I always loved teaching kindergarten.
Yeah, sounds fun. And then the PCI coaching, that's also something I looked into because I also went into coaching. So I know a local PCI coach here. What does that look like? How are you helping families? What's the environment? Is this phone calls, or you have an office? Are you visiting people in the home? And are they calling you about all ages, or just curious about the whole picture here?
Yeah, the coaching world was pretty new to me, which it is to a lot of people, but oh my goodness, do I love it. Like, it's such a missing puzzle piece, I feel like. I really appreciate and value counseling, but counseling is a lot of looking back and thinking about what's wrong. And the PCI coaching model is based on positive psychology, and I've really integrated that and adapted that into my own coaching practice. So parent coaching, what I do is all looking forward and looking what's really working well and looking what you're already amazing at and building on those things. And it's so powerful. I mean, I truly haven't had a client who has, every client that I've worked with has gone through some sort of transformation using this model of positive psychology and coaching, where we're making concrete plans and working towards them. So how I actually work with people is over the phone. And we try to speak every week for an hour. Some people do 4 sessions. Some people do 10 sessions. Some people do 20 sessions and everything in between. And people generally are coming to me because there's a challenge, because there's something that's hard. Parenting just feels hard. And I really use Instagram as like a platform to kind of talk about what we can do in the transformation. And I indicate, like, yes, of course, parenting is hard, but it doesn't have to be that hard. You can parent and feel real deep joy more of the time than you are right now. And so that's mostly why people are coming to me, is like something's just kind of sticky or off or not feeling great. And so we work together. I do phone calls. Something that's sort of like my special sauce or my secret sauce is that I give a very extensive write-up after every phone call. So that solidifies, here's what, like, just lots of bullet points. If you follow me on Instagram, I love like lists and numbered things and just like breaking down the clarity of like, what's actually the challenge for you here? What's going on? And then all the wins, like, oh, here's what actually worked really well. Let's do more of that and less of that other thing that's not working well. And so people, clients from a couple of years ago will approach me in the grocery store and be like, I'm in a parenting challenge, but all I did is I opened up this personal parenting book that you essentially wrote me over our time together, read it, and was like, oh yeah, I have all the skills, I have all the knowledge, and then they could work through it. And so I always say, like, it's a real good feel model for me, but it's a bad business model, because essentially I set you up so that you don't need to come back every time there's a parenting challenge.
Right.
It's like I set you up for success forever, hopefully.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we'll run out of parents who need help pretty soon here after we've all talked them all off the ledge. I can definitely...
exactly.
Definitely testify to the magic of coaching and really having that person there who, even something as simple as taking notes on the call, the client isn't always doing that, and that's part of what coaching is offering perspective. And if there's a blind spot, the client might hint at it, but it's often the coach's job to be the one who gets that on paper and says, hold on, let's look here. Let's look here a little bit more. Again, in a positive way.
Totally. I recently worked with a client, and it was an intake session. So it's really just, I'm like, okay, tell me details. What do the tantrums look like? How are they ending? How are they starting? Just give me some clarity about what's going on so that I can help you develop a plan. So I sent her the recap, and when I spoke to her again, she was like, I would have paid for just that because it changed everything. And all I was doing was reflecting back to her what she said. Like I didn't even hint at anything. I just reflected back, and having it all written out on a piece of paper where she could see with bulleted points, she made a huge change and transformation immediately in her life that shifted everything. So it is such a powerful model for sure. I love coaching.
So let's say that you're talking to a family and they're working on a plan to get their kid, to cooperate with them, let's say in the evening, and there's a pain point there where the parents want the television to go off, and they're having difficulty with that part of the evening. What are the steps that you would walk them through?
Yeah, one of my main sort of messages, and again, what I love about coaching is that it would be different for every family. So right. I know that's not a very nice little tied up in a bow answer, but it's the truth. It's, what are the family values happening? What's their situation? What's their support level? are you off to your second job, or are you a stay-at-home mom who's been with the kid all day? So there's so much nuance in an individual family. So that is something that before we even got to the point where we were talking about this is the challenge, is like the evenings are challenging and the TV's not going off, there would be so much background work on, well, what are your strengths? What are your kids' strengths? And all those sorts of things. But in the spirit of, like what I do offer on my social media platform is just information. Something that I know clients have had a lot of success with is to come up with a kid-generated plan. So
kid-generated plan?
A kid-generated plan, yeah. I don't know if I coined that phrase, but I think I've adapted it from Ross Greene, who wrote The Explosive Child. But the idea is that if they are in control, because one of the things that I work with families is how are your child's needs proactively being filled? So one need that we all have is a need for power and control, and to feel like we get to make decisions and we're autonomous. So if the child has no opportunities for feeling powerful all throughout the day, and then now there's another directive, you need to turn off the TV now, that might just be the tipping point. So that would be kind of the first, and that's how parenting is. Like, yes, there's that moment that's hard and the challenge is happening, but of course there were thousands of moments before that moment that have led to this situation. So this is kind of my beef with, like, here's a parenting strategy to implement, because it sometimes can forget this whole picture. But so coming up with a kid-generated plan and just sitting down with your child and saying, here's what I'm noticing. In the evenings when it's time to turn off the TV, you don't, or you scream at me, or we get into a big fight. What are you noticing? And giving them an opportunity to talk about what their experience is of turning off the TV. And then stating your needs. So, my need is for the TV to go off at 6 p.m. so we can sit and have dinner together. What is your need? And asking the child, they have a platform also to say what they might need. And then saying, okay, can you generate a plan? Can you come up with a plan? Do you have any ideas where your needs are getting met and my needs are getting met? And kids, we talked about this off the top, like kids are so creative. They have so many ideas. Have we taken the time to ask them? Have we included them in this process? And it's okay to be ready with ideas. Like, one thing that I have seen almost be magical is saying that the child gets to turn off the TV instead of you touching the button to turn it off with young children, but actually they, click the off button. So you can be ready with that idea. Like, do you think it would help if you turned it off? But in them participating in a conversation, and I went through something like this with my oldest daughter, and the plan that she came up with is, because she's like, I'm really sad when the TV goes off. I love watching TV, it's such a special treat. It's not something we do often in our home. Mm-hmm. So I'm really disappointed. So I said, well, okay, what's your plan to deal with that disappointed feeling? And so for the longest time, she would turn off the TV and jump on the couch, which was fine with me. We have an old couch, and rub her heart and say, I'm disappointed, until she wasn't anymore. And then
she's laughing hysterically.
Yeah, exactly. So, and she came up with that plan. So that worked for her. It wasn't me saying, why don't you get a drink of water or something? It's like, nah, that doesn't work for me. Like jumping up and down, rubbing my heart, and doing a big voiceover. So,
and you couldn't have been expected to come up with that. That's if you made a list of 100 things, you might not come up with that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to come from the child. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the beauty of the kid-generated plan for sure. So it's being open and willing to hear what they might say.
And in that process, the kids are creative, imaginative. When they're naming things or they're drawing a hard line and saying, "Oh no, well," and they're suggesting something unreasonable. Time to turn off TV. I get to eat the bag of chocolate. Do you have any suggestions there for how to handle the the suggestions that aren't something you're willing to work with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of the criteria was it has to meet both the parent's needs and the child's needs, right? So if you framed the conversation like that, you can say, interesting idea, but that doesn't meet my need to keep you safe or to feed you healthy food, before dinner time. And then you could say, what would make my need is if you had some red pepper, but not a big bowl of ice cream or something. And then you could say, does that meet your need? And they go, ew, no. And you're like, okay, well, let's look at another plan. Any other ideas? So it's not that you're shooting down their idea, but, and need language is, I love need language. I just think there is so much benefit to teaching children how to say, this is what I need. And for parents to say, this is what I need, because I think it eliminates in adulthood passive aggressiveness and people being overlooked for jobs or promotions. Like if you're a person who knows what you need and can say it in a way that doesn't violate anyone else, oh my goodness, think of the adults we are raising. Like that is just so amazing. So this is one of those small opportunities to use that language and say, well, this is what I need. What do you need? Okay, there's, compromise. Compromise can mean sometimes those people don't get exactly what they want, but get a little bit of what they need.
Do you ever find that you're in a conversation with a coachee and you are full of great ideas, but they're having trouble implementing them? What advice do you have for, let's just say, for me as a in my own coaching world, to really motivate and encourage people to do what it is that they're saying they want to do, they feel like they want to do, but they come back that next week and they say, oh no, didn't really implement it?
Great question.
It's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one, but it's something I've thought a lot about for sure. The first thing I would say is I always screen my clients before I agree to take them on as a client. So I will talk to someone. I have a pretty extensive intake process. They have to fill out a lot of paperwork, and it's intentional because if they don't get me that paperwork back, I'm pretty sure they're not going to be the kind of person who's going to show up for themselves in this process. So it doesn't mean that we can't work together in the future. It just means they might not be ready. They might not be ready to actually do coaching. They might need to still do counseling or be doing some self-reflection process that is not going to be happening in this coaching container. So that's sort of one way that I have ensured that I only work with people that I'm sure I'm going to be able to get them transformation, essentially. And then the other thing is almost there's something about your question is that you said when you're full of good ideas and you're sharing them with the client and they say yes, but don't implement them, what I would say is that then you as the coach, because part of a coach's job is they're not, so analogous to sports, right? You're not on the field. You're not on the court. You're just on the sidelines. You're a coach. So you, just like the kid-generated plan, the goal of a coach is to ask a question that shifts the mindset where the client is coming up with the idea. And when the client comes up with the idea, they're going to implement it. When you say, why don't you try? They're going to go, nah, or they're going to say yes, but they're not going to do it.
Right.
So,
yep.
So
one more way in which kids and adults are similar. It's
of course. That's the very first thing I said. Yeah, kids are adults. Kids are human. Kids are humans. Kids are whole. And so thinking about that for sure, it's the same thing. So I have had so many moments with clients where I'm like, yay, because they say the thing that I've been hoping that they'll try and implement, right? Like we've guided them. It's 4 sessions. We're 4 sessions in. I'm like, come on, this is the time. and they say it, and I'll literally cheer on the phone and be like, yay, I've been waiting for you to come around to this idea, and I'm so happy you're here. I wanted to tell you this, but I knew you'd get there. So, and then, of course, that positive feeling of their coach also being so proud of them for generating this idea. You know, we're people. We love to make people happy. We love to feel that positivity, and so higher chance of them implementing it. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's...
I don't know. It was a broad question anyway. And does PCI use do they ever talk about kind of the parent as coach model? Does that ever come up?
The parent as the coach model, you know, oh my goodness, the materials were super dense. So it's maybe, I couldn't say for certain. I can't remember.
What advice do you hear from professionals that you think people should be wary of and should avoid doing or stop doing?
Anytime a parenting person says you should, you have to, or you should never, I would just close the door and walk away because that it actually makes me so upset when people do that, because I think it just propagates mom guilt and parent guilt, which is something that I feel really, really strongly against sort of eliminating. And also parenting people who are so extreme. Either we only can think about the child's needs. You essentially should just have no thoughts or feelings, parent. You are just there to meet the needs of your child. Or a parent, your needs are the only thing that's important. So you just do exactly what you need and forget the sort of either or reality, I call it. And I'm really into this both and reality. So you both have needs. And in every situation are both of your needs being met. And sleep is like a really easy example of this. You know, on the one end, there's sort of that bed sharing and nursing on demand and all those things. And again, if that's working for you, don't do anything. That's great. But if your needs aren't getting met by that, then what else? Is there a way that you can both meet the needs of your child, but your needs are more effectively being met, versus the Ferber method of just cry it out, let them cry, close the door, which isn't meeting the needs of the child, but maybe is meeting your needs. So that's what really bothers me, is when parenting people aren't considering the both and.
That language, the should and have to and never language, it's an easier sell. It's the clickbait title of 15 things you should never do, and it just really is easy to gloss over the complexities, the depth, all the gray areas if you're using language like that that's so pointed.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot lately, I don't know if you'll echo this, but a lot of people being like, instead of saying this, you should be saying this. Like, I saw one the other day, don't call your kid cute, say they're smart or something like that. And I was like, oh, come on. I felt like, what a propagation of mom guilt, because now every mom who has called their kid cute 20 times that day goes, oh, I'm doing something wrong. No, you're not. I'm here to tell you, no, you're not. You are in a relationship with your child, and maybe cute to you has connotations of like, I see you, and I love the person you are, and I see your wholeness. And that's the way that language works, right? It's loaded with whatever we load it with. So I felt like saying, how dare you tell parents not to say cute? I try not to actually engage in those things on Instagram, but I have an emotional reaction to any time. Absolutely. And it's not to say that I don't offer, like I did a post on maybe instead of saying be careful, try some other language. And my idea was similar, like, well, what's the charge? So if you're saying be careful because you're really anxious, are you just transferring your anxiety to your child? So it's like, I think it's okay to think about our language, but just this like, you should never, or you shouldn't. Makes me crazy.
What are some of your favorite resources that you find yourself recommending most?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I have a lot of resources that I turn to. I really like Dr. Shafali. She's the conscious parenting guru. I love Dr. Dan Siegel. My husband is actually a physician, and so I really appreciate science, that like logical thought process. And Dr. Dan Siegel is not only a pediatrician, but also a psychiatrist, which is incredible, the amount of training he has. And so I just really like his perspective. I like Gordon Neufeld, who comes from like an attachment perspective. But here's what I'd say with any of them is kind of, I think, been my messaging the whole way through, is filtered through your own experience, your own values, what's going on in your home. So all of them have great ideas if they're right for you at the right time.
Nice. We'll put links to all of that in the show notes. And how about what you're working on? Where can people find you? And do you have anything exciting coming up you'd like to share with us?
The best way to find me is I offer sort of tons and tons of parenting information on my Instagram. So that's parent_coaching. And I have a website, which is parentcoaching.ca, because I'm up here in Canada. And so you can find I have some freebies up there. One of my sort of most popular freebies is I have a tantrum script about sort of literally this hung on my fridge when my eldest was going through an intense tantrum phase. So my husband and I could walk over and read it. And I just had a girlfriend in Seattle tell me that she now walks into her friends' houses and sees it on their fridge too, which I was like, that's so great. That's exactly what it's for. So you can find that on my website, parentcoaching.ca. And then you'll be signed up for my email list. And I am actually working on something exciting. So my one-on-one private coaching, I have a pretty extensive wait list. I mean, still put yourself on it if you're interested. But I have been thinking a lot about how I can serve a greater population without having to wait for a spot to open up, for a lower price point too. So if you follow me on Instagram or my business page on Facebook, or go to my website and download that tantrum freebie, then you will get updates as I sort of get this thing going.
Exciting. Well, it better not be podcasting, because I got this field covered.
It's not podcasting.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. We'll look forward to that. Again, I'll put links to everything, and I've really enjoyed talking with you. So thanks for sharing your wisdom today. Yeah.
Thank you.
For everybody out there who's listening, check out those links. Go to parentcoaching.ca. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And we'll see y'all next time.